Alright, teams, we're back, of course, to talk about some more Final Fantasy 16, and we have some interesting things to talk about today. Some very exciting things, but also some very underwhelming things involving the game. Also want to cover this and discuss it just because there seems to be a bit of confusion on what exactly is going on. But for starters, May 4th is going to be an exciting day for Final Fantasy 16. First and foremost, there's going to be a PlayStation 5 Bundle. So you buy a PS5 and it comes with a copy of Final Fantasy 16. So this is obviously exciting for anybody that does not already have a PS5, but also wants to play Final Fantasy 16. There's not really a reason to get this if you already have a PS5. There's nothing special about it, unless you just want or need another PS5. According to the picture right here, though, it is a PS5 that does have a disc drive, so maybe if you got like an all-digital PS5 and you want to technically upgrade to one with a disc drive, I guess that's a reason to buy it, which is what I prefer personally. But despite it being a PS5 with a disc drive, I'm almost certain that the copy of 16 you're getting is a digital code. At least that's my experience with this. I bought the Horizon Forbidden West bundle sometime last year, and that was also a code. So yeah, this is pretty exciting. Pre-orders will go live on May 4th, and of course, this will not release until June 22nd, which is whenever Final Fantasy 16 releases. But speaking of that PS5 not being special, this is where we move on to the other bit of news that is bittersweet. There will be official PlayStation 5 faceplates for Final Fantasy 16 and a DualSense controller, but it's Japan only. At least according to pretty much every source out there, this is where that confusion was coming from that I mentioned earlier, because people weren't sure whether or not we were going to be getting the faceplates and the controller, but we're not. It's only in Japan. It's all happening on May 4th. Like in Japan, they're getting the PlayStation 5 bundle, but also they're able to pre-order that controller and those faceplates, and we're just getting the bundle over here, right? So I think that's where, just because the same date is where the confusion was coming from. But yeah, you can just put like the PlayStation Twitter account side by side, the English and the Japanese, and you can see that there's one thing missing from the English, right? So I think it's pretty distinct. Like if we were getting these, they'd be marketing it. As for the items themselves, the faceplate I think is really cool. It's very simple. It's just solid black, which is what a lot of people wanted. Like, because the white PS5 is like whatever. Just in general, if I can be completely honest, I'm just not a fan of the design of the PS5. It looks like one of those like fake upcoming PlayStation consoles that you see like all the time, like fan-made images and shit. It just doesn't look like it's a real console, but it in fact is. The controller absolutely fucks though, but the white faceplates on the console, just they're weird considering that PlayStation as a brand for the last 20-something years or so were like black consoles, right? PS2, PS3, PS4, and then when they revealed PS5, it's an almost completely white console. And maybe that's why they changed, 2 decades of similar like color schemes for the consoles. That potentially is why. But I think that's why a lot of fans were clamoring for the black faceplates, right? Because it just would probably look better that way. And these, in fact, do look better. I would much rather have this on my console than the generic default shit that I have right now. But yeah, it has the Final Fantasy 16 logo on it, Ifrit, Phoenix, obviously. Goldish color, it seems to look like. I don't know. I'm blind. As for the FF16 DualSense controller, it's obviously going to be a hell of a lot better than like a generic default controller that comes with the console when you buy it. But this might be a hot take here. The design itself doesn't do it for me. I don't know what about this particular design is meant to exude Final Fantasy 16. Maybe I just don't know enough about 16, which is definitely a fact. Again, the point is, I don't know what about this is saying that it's a Final Fantasy 16 controller, other than maybe the touchpad has what looks like crystals on it, maybe, just because like it's going back to a Final Fantasy that is using the crystals in the story and shit. Like, I don't know, you look at like the Hogwarts Legacy PS5 controller. You look at that bitch and you know it's Harry Potter. Look at the God of War Ragnarok limited edition controller, right? You look at that, you know it's God of War. I look at this, I'm just like, what is that? I don't want to sit here and spend like a big part of this video just trashing the controller design, because it is still aesthetically a cool controller. I just don't know why you wouldn't put like the Final Fantasy 16 logo on it, or have like Phoenix on one side of the controller, like the left handle, and like Ifrit on the right handle or something, kind of like breaking up the logo for 16. I don't know. There could have been something cooler to do in my opinion. Anyways. I guess it doesn't really fucking matter anyways, because we're not getting it. I guess unless you want to buy it from and ship it from Japan or something. Like, we don't have access to it anyways, so fuck us. Anyways, it's more or less a video, my dudes. Kind of a quick recap here. The PlayStation 5 Final Fantasy 16 bundle will be available for pre-order on May 4th from PlayStation Direct, which is their website. And of course, it's not coming out until June 22nd. The same thing is true for the faceplate and the controller, if you can find a way to buy those. And actually, something else I forgot to mention, we get in these like discussions and tangents, and I forget to talk about stuff sometimes. This is apparently the first like official faceplate from like Sony for like any other game so far for the PS5, which I think is true. It sounded right when I seen the article about it. I don't have a way to like 100% confirm that. But if that is the case, that's actually pretty exciting considering how much stock they're putting into Final Fantasy 16 to be the first game for the PS5 to have custom faceplates, because they've had some great games come out over the last year and a half or so since the PS5's come out. Like, Last of Us Remastered, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West. And even though, like, Forspoken was obviously kind of polarizing, that was a very hyped game and a PS5 exclusive game. You think that game would have got that treatment first, but maybe that shows which game Sony believed in more. But yeah, if this is true, man, it's exciting. That shows how much they are really behind Final Fantasy 16, but also maybe the Final Fantasy franchise as a whole. Maybe in the future. I know we always talk, every time we talk about 16, I somehow find a way to bring up 7 Remake and Rebirth and shit. But maybe like going into like Rebirth is something else we get too, like custom like faceplates and controllers and shit for Rebirth. That's exciting. I just couldn't make it to the end of a 16 video without mentioning this shit. But obviously we're all excited for 16, but we're equally, if not more so, excited for the Remake project. I guess maybe it doesn't really matter, because if these do exist, we couldn't get them here unless you want to, again, order them from Japan. Anyways, I'm rambling at this point. Let's wrap the goddamn video up. That's the video. Subscribe to if you guys are new. Social networks in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, @DaveYT. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Low Gain or leave it like Cobain.